We are now officially at the time we should be starting everything. So, once again, welcome back. Let's kickstart the afternoon by me introducing Major Pat Burgess. So, Pat began his service in the 2nd Royal Tank Regiment, I'm led to believe. Meaningless to me, I'm an ex-Matlow, so, but there you go. And has recently been promoted to Major as officer commanding the Combat CIS School. So Pat's interest in mental health, resilience, and more specifically mindfulness started in 2009 whilst on operations in Afghanistan, where he first became interested in mindfulness. So Pat now runs classes for the permanent staff, both military and civilian, at the Armour Centre in Bovington, and has recently created a defence-wide online mindfulness course delivering training to over 6,000 personnel to date. He also has another claim to fame, and I think this is probably quite unique. He is probably almost certainly the only serving member of the armed forces to have appeared at Glastonbury. Over to Pat.
That's a bit of rock and roll there, isn't it?
Oh, well.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Oh. I know you've just had lunch and everything, but can we try that again? Hello, everyone. How you doing? Hey, you're in the room. Fantastic. Lovely to see you all. So yeah, I'm Major Dr. Pat Burgess. Yeah, my God. MBE, amazing. When I was young, I had a black Mohican, 10 earrings in that ear, nose pierced, and I probably tried every substance known to man before I joined the army. I just hasten to add. And so for me to be stood here talking to you is a bigger shock to me as it is to you. But I'm here to talk to you about this incredible thing called mindfulness. And there will be people in the audience, I'm sure, who have an idea of what mindfulness is. Let me just tell you, this talk, during it, I'm going to challenge your assumptions, I'm going to challenge your beliefs, I'm going to probably challenge the way that you think the world works. And what I'm not asking you to do at the end of this is to walk out with me as my apostles as we go to change the world, but you can if you wish. But what I am asking for you during this talk is for open minds. All I'm requesting is for you to have your minds open, to listen to what I'm about to talk about. Give it a chance when we go through it. And if it's something that you're interested in, then there is plenty of resources that I'll talk about towards the end. So this thing called mindfulness. Now remember I said that I need you to have open minds. This brief lasts for about an hour. Don't be worried by that. It will fly by, honestly. But it lasts for an hour. Open minds is the most important thing. Everybody happy? Yeah? Good. Okay. About 55 minutes left to go. Only kidding. Only kidding. Right, I love to do that at the start of a brief, because firstly, the person that books me is now terrified, and they don't know what I'm going to do next, which is always a great start. And the second one is because it gives you an opportunity to judge me and also what I'm talking about. Most people think, when they hear about mindfulness, that it's about someone sitting down in the lotus position, drifting off on a cloud of wow man bliss out of the real world. As you'll find out as we go through this talk, it's the complete opposite. Now, I've got two definitions of mindfulness for you. The first one's from a guy called Jon Kabat-Zinn. Now, Jon Kabat-Zinn is the founding father of mindfulness in the Western world. He is the guy that went over to the East at the end of the Vietnam War era, and loads of people went over there searching for meaning. He noticed in this Buddhist philosophy, this is non-religious, by the way, this is completely secular practice, but he noticed in the Buddhist belief system that there was this thing called right mindfulness. And he worked out that you can apply this mindfulness in clinical settings. So for helping people with anxiety, stress, post-traumatic stress, chronic pain, and other common mental health disorders. And so he came back to the West, and set up this thing called the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Clinic. And it was in the University of Massachusetts Hospital. So in the hospital upstairs, you've got clinicians, psychologists, psychiatrists, counsellors helping people with common mental health disorders. If they were unable to reach their patients or establish a therapeutic relationship, they would send them down to the basement to John Kabat-Zinn, and he'd put them on his 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course, where the results were astonishing. People were starting to heal themselves. John Kabat-Zinn was giving them a very simple set of techniques, and by using them, people were healing themselves. Every mindfulness course that's now taught in the Western world is based on John Kabat-Zinn's work, so it's only right we use his definition up front. So his definition of mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment, on purpose, non-judgmentally. Paying attention to the present moment, on purpose, non-judgmentally. Now that sounds really simple. It's not as easy as you think. I'm going to break it down for you. So paying attention. I mean, you're mostly doing that now. You know, there's a portion of your attention is on me, but a portion of your attention is elsewhere. Maybe stuff that happened already today, maybe stuff that could happen later, maybe what's happening in the room around you. So not as easy as it sounds right at the start. To the present moment, though. When's that? Anyone? When's the present moment? Now. Thank you. Now, did you know hardly anyone spends any time in the present moment? They spend nearly all their time forecasting into a future or back into a past and never actually physically turning up for the only moment they're alive. We miss it. We're spending all our time in here. So paying attention to the present moment on purpose. Here's the kicker. Mindfulness takes effort. It's not sitting on that cloud drifting back into bliss. It is coming into the present moment out of your imagination. So paying attention to the present moment on purpose, finally, non-judgmentally. Good luck then. I mean, you're all human beings. We judge. We put things into categories: good, bad, friend, foe, happy, sad, nice, not nice. It's what we do. It was an evolutionary imperative. It's enabled us to apparently be top of the food chain. I mean, there's a couple of microorganisms that will disagree with you there, but apparently, you know, that's what's enabled us as a species to survive, that capability to judge things and to categorize. But we've pretty much pacified the natural world. And a lot of those innate things that we've learned are now misfiring in this strange new world that we live in. So this tool, this mindfulness, can help us where this is concerned. Now, I deliver this talk all over the place. I mean, you know, I deliver all around defense, clearly, hence the pajamas that I'm wearing. But I also deliver outside of defense. I've been in prison, schools, I've been to charities, big corporates. Sorry, just the prison bit. I'm going to take you back there. I know I've got prison tats. Don't judge me. I never spent any jail time. I literally just went there to do the talk. But I've created a definition that underpins this talk for the purpose of this talk of mindfulness. So my definition for the purpose of this talk for mindfulness is your mind, your body, same place, same time, same focus. Your mind and your body in the same place at the same time and focused on the same thing. How often are your minds and your bodies in the same place at the same time? Now, if you're like the majority of the population, that's a very rare experience because, like I said, we're spending nearly all our time inside our minds and paying no attention to this phenomenal instrument. I mean, not just this one, but it is pretty phenomenal, which is the body. We're spending all our time inside the minds, and this is ludicrous because the mind and the body are intrinsically linked. Everything that happens in the mind has an effect on the body. Everything that happens in the body has an effect on the mind. But we're spending all our time up here, not paying attention to this. There is a really important difference between the mind and the body. The body's incapable of lying. The body tells you the truth every single day. Every bit of feedback you get off of it is accurate. Your mind, on the other hand, that lies to you every day. I'm not good enough, clever enough, attractive enough, smart enough, nice enough, happy enough. It tells you all sorts of things about yourself which aren't necessarily true. That's where this tool called mindfulness is so powerful. And it enables us to bring ourselves back into balance with the mind and the body so we can see what's really going on in the world around us, not just what our mind is saying. Now, I am a huge advocate of mindfulness, and you'll pick it up as I go through. I'm slightly passionate about my subject. Apologies up front. But I'm not the only one. The National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence, so NICE, the people that underpin all of the treatments across the UK, they're huge advocates of mindfulness. We're the only country in the world that offers mindfulness as a prescription. They also say that mindfulness is as effective as a course of antidepressants when treating recurrent depression. Now, that doesn't sound big until you work out who funds NICE. It's the pharmaceutical companies, primarily. So that's quite a big deal then to say that something that requires no input of funding is the equivalent of something that funds them. That's quite big. And in the Houses of Parliament, you wouldn't believe it, but they have mindfulness courses every week. I know, it's hard to believe, but they do run mindfulness courses in there every week. And then there is a thing called the Mindfulness Initiative, and there's an all-party parliamentary group that are looking at where mindfulness fits. Where does it fit in society, into the blue light services, into school? Lots of people will have children in schools. They're being taught mindfulness now as part of the curriculum. The Dalai Lama famously said, if you taught all of the children of the world mindfulness, there would be no more conflicts. I mean, I'd be out of a job, but I think that'd be quite a good thing. Anyhow, so I'm just raising your awareness of this tool called mindfulness, just to show you how prevalent this mindfulness is, this thing is. Now, my interest in mindfulness has been touched on briefly. So I was a squadron sergeant major of a squadron, we were called the Viking Group, and we were on operations in Afghanistan. And we took out a squadron of 120 personnel. At the end of the tour, we came back with 3 less, and with 20% life-changing injuries across the squadron from IEDs and enemy contact. Now, when we got back, what I noticed about my soldiers were not only the physical injuries that they were experiencing, but a lot of them were very badly psychologically damaged. So I decided to take it upon myself to do a degree in psychology, because I believed that with that, I would be able to become a counsellor and then be able to bridge the gap. Because when they were going to the Department of Community Mental Health, the DCMH that we have within the forces, they were unable to establish a therapeutic relationship with the counsellors because the counsellors had no idea what the soldiers had experienced. So I thought with my experience and the qualification, I would be able to become a counsellor. I'm looking through my psychology textbook, and I come across this thing called mindfulness. Now, I've been reading a book prior to this, years before, from a guy called Eckhart Tolle, and the book's called The Power of Now. Has anybody heard of it? Anybody read it? Yeah, we got some hands up. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, that book blew my socks off. I thought I knew what was going on in the world until I read that book. But when I read about mindfulness, I realized that Eckhart Tolle and mindfulness were the same thing. They were talking about the same thing, it was just in a slightly different language. So here I saw an opportunity to create some courseware based on this teachable thing called mindfulness, which is why I do what I do and where this stuff is all in defense now. I'm going to take you back to Eckhart Tolle, though. Eckhart Tolle, in his book, talks about being on a train in London. I need to establish a frame of reference. Has everyone been on a train before? Yeah? Okay. You know, I know it seems like a strange question, but I need to establish that, for I shouldn't assume. Has everyone been on the underground train before? Know what it looks like to be on an underground train? Everybody experienced it, or at least seen a film of it? So picture Eckhart Tolle. Now, he's on the underground train in London, commuter train, packed. He's holding onto that weird handle thing that's above your head, trying to keep yourself upright, with the motion of the trains rocking him. Now, pretty much everybody on this packed commuter train is trying desperately not to make any physical or eye contact with the people around them. I mean, there's always the odd one trying to touch people, but the majority of people were trying desperately not to make any physical or eye contact on this train. Over in the corner of the train is a lady. Now, she's a bit scruffy and disheveled by appearance, and she's got a bit of a funky aroma. And she's having a conversation, but with nobody but herself. And she starts off really, really quiet, and then she gets really, really loud, and then she gets really, really quiet again, and then she's angry, and then she's really calm, and then she's happy, and then she's crying, and she's going from subject to subject to subject, loud, quiet, angry, sad, happy, unhappy, with no rhyme nor reason, and just having a conversation with herself in the corner of the train. Now, most people on the train are now trying to create some space between themselves and this lady, because she's making them feel a little bit uncomfortable. The train stops at the next stop, the doors open, pretty much everyone from that carriage exits. It's not even their stop. They just wanted to create some space between them and that lady. Now, based on that, has anyone got any idea what could be wrong with that lady? What is she displaying? Now, I'm going to take the funnies out of the way first. I'll come back to you two. I'm going to take the funnies out of the way first, because just in case you were queuing them up, she's not just very clever and trying to create some space on the train, all right? We're not having that. And she wasn't on the phone on her pods. Right, now back to you. What? Thank you. Schizophrenia? That's what you were going to say as well? Yeah, anything else? Loneliness, yeah. Any other ideas, yeah? Multiple personality disorder, awesome. I mean, I asked these questions up front because I want to demonstrate something to you. We have such an impressive understanding of mental ill health now than we ever had before. The education around this subject now is second to none. And so when we see or experience somebody in difficulty like that, we can almost diagnose them because of our knowledge. And that is absolutely to the power of the good. Now, when I was young, which was a couple of years back, we never had all of those categories. We had one 3-letter word that we would use to describe that lady when we were looking at her in the corner of the train. And because I'm that bit older, I hope you'll humour me when I use that word, because I would say, from the perspective of everybody in the train looking at that lady, that they thought she was mad. Because she was acting differently to them, behaving in a way that's different to them, and it was making them feel uncomfortable. So they thought she was mad. Now that leads me to an inevitable question. Less the funky aroma and the disheveled clothing, etc., what's the difference between her and you? What was she doing that you don't do? Anybody? Yeah. She's expressing herself. Yeah, she's vocalizing her thoughts, because I would argue that inside your heads every day, you have multiple conversations going on with multiple voices about multiple subjects. Some of them are loud, some of them are quiet, some of them are calm, some of them are happy, some of them are angry, agitated, and they are moving from subject to subject to subject with all those different parameters in them with very little rhyme or reason. She vocalizes, you don't. Who's mad? We're all a little bit crazy, you know. The lunatic's taken over the asylum. The mind is running the show, and that does not have to be the case. This phenomenal tool, this mindfulness that I'm going to talk to you about today, is a way of noticing what is going on inside our minds and realizing that we don't have to follow the thoughts. Because there's 2 news flashes that come with this talk. First one is newsflash minor. I'm going to deliver that one to you in a moment. But I am going to deliver a sentence to you later in this talk, newsflash major, which is so powerful that it could change the way that you perceive the world forever. That's how powerful the sentence is. It's so powerful that it could change the way you live your lives. Now, I'm not delivering it now. I'm delivering it later. That's my hook to keep you in here. See, like the way I did that? But I'm still going to give you newsflash minor up front. You are not your mind. You are not your mind. Your mind is a tool for you to use. You own it. It does not own you. You should control it. It shouldn't control you. Unfortunately, the majority of the population have not received the brief, and they are being driven by this mind. But you are not your mind. Now, I'm not belittling your minds in any way here. Your mind is the most powerful instrument that has ever been created. You can build with it, you can design with it, you can imagine with it, you can do all sorts of plan, you can do wonderful things with this phenomenal tool. In fact, your mind is so powerful that it contains your entire universe. That's how powerful your mind is. But you own it. It doesn't own you, and you should be controlling it. And that's where this phenomenal tool, mindfulness, will come in and help us. Now, I'm going to demonstrate how crazy our minds are in a moment. I'm going to over-explain something. Remember I said that. I'm going to over-explain something, and I'm going to give you some really simple instructions on how to do something. So in a moment, I want you to imagine that you're a cat. Meow! That is me being a cat. Thanks. That is like watching a lambda-trained actor burst on stage in front of your eyes and deliver a stunning performance in role. I mean, people pay thousands of pounds for that in the West End. I want you, in a minute, to imagine that you're a cat waiting at a mouse hole. Why are cats at the mouse holes? What are they there for? Anybody? Waiting for the mouse. What are they going to do when the mouse comes out? Anyone? Chase it? What's the action? Fantastic. Thank you very much. In a minute, I want you to be the cat waiting at the mouse hole for the mouse to come out. When the mouse comes out, I want you to pounce on it. But the mouse for you is the very first thought that pops into your head. Remember I said I was going to over-explain it? Just did. All I want you to do in a moment is to close your eyes, not right now, but in a moment. And when the very first thought pops into your head, I want you to spring your eyes open like you're the cat catching the mouse. So all you're doing is closing your eyes, and when the first thought pops into your head, you're springing your eyes open. Everyone happy with the brief? Good. Everyone close your eyes. And when the first thought pops into your head, spring your eyes open. If you're asleep, it doesn't count. And if you heard my voice, there's a pretty good chance you had a thought. And if you haven't already done so, or you don't recognize your thoughts, please open your eyes. Now, what normally happens there in the first 5 to 10 seconds is everybody's eyes spring open, and that is really slow. You're doing something very unusual. You're watching your thoughts. Most people don't do that. Now, Harvard University claim that we have between 40 and 60,000 thoughts a day going through our head. Between 40 and 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, they've put a percentage, a figure, on how many of those thoughts they believe are productive. And what I mean by that is they lead to a product, something tangible, a real outcome. Time for a bit of self-reflection, folks. Thinking of your own thoughts that go through your heads every day, what sort of percentage would you put on the ones that are productive? Now, I'm going to start you with a figure, and I'm going to go in descending order of the figures, and I'd like you to just put your hands up when I reach your figure, all right? So, 100% anybody? 90? 80? 70? 70? Impressive. 60? 50? 50? We've got a few 50s. 40? Couple 30? 20? 10? Less than 10? Okay, very interesting. I would say majority there are somewhere around the 40% and below mark. Firstly, what I want you to realize is from your own self-reflection that you know that the majority of your psychological activity is wasted. It leads to nothing. It doesn't lead to a product. Now, if you were walking downtown Bovington, the bustling metropolis that it is, and a bear jumped out in front of you, which is very normal, by the way, for a night out in Bovington, you would immediately go into fight, flight, or freeze response without having to think. Your body would take over. It would send energy to the correct part of your body so that you could carry out the requisite action when that was happening. And contrary to popular belief in the books and all the stuff you've read, it's not to lie down if it's a brown bear, stand still if it's a black bear, smile if it's a grizzly bear, too late you're dead, it's a polar bear. It's not that. Your body would take over and you would run. And in the running, what would happen is you would discharge all that energy that's been created inside your body for just that purpose. Therefore, discharging the energy and it leaves the body. What happens, though, if that energy is generated based on a thought? Where does it go? Well, it stays inside your body, I'm afraid, because you can't discharge it, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it can lead to hyper-arousal, hyper-awareness, anxiety, and potentially pretty ill health. Again, here's where this fabulous tool, mindfulness, comes in to help us. Now, Harvard said 40%. 40% of your thoughts are productive. So, whilst you're patting yourselves on the back and thinking, yeah, I was cleverer than I thought, that's just Harvard talking about themselves. All right, they think they're really clever. I'm probably reckoning it's more like the 10% mark of all this stuff, because the other stuff they're talking about in those 60,000 thoughts are the automatic stuff. Did you know it's 27 steps to make a cup of tea? 27 individual steps to make a cup of tea. They're all included. Okay? Try it next time you make a cup of tea. Honestly, you'd be amazed. So 40%, they say, of your thoughts are productive. And like I said, we're wasting a lot of psychological activity and we're creating that kind of tension inside our bodies. Now I'm going to take you through a scenario in a moment just to show you how crazy our mind can get. And then I'm going to take you through a practice to show us how we can come out of fight, flight, and freeze response in very short order. Okay? So you're no longer on the train. You'll be pleased to know you're off the train. You've escaped the train. I'm now going to make another massive leap, and I'm going to assume that you all drive cars, or at least you know what it's like to be in a car as it's moving along. So just a little nod of head so I can get a general feeling. Yeah, good. So you're all car drivers, and you're on your way to work in the morning on a dual carriageway with a central reservation. So the speed limit is There's a difference of opinion there. If you said 70, you've passed the highway code test. If you said 60, get back. You need to do some more. See, you didn't know you were going to get tested on that today, did you? But anyway, so you're driving in your car, on your way to work, on a dual carriageway, with a central reservation, with a speed limit of 70 miles an hour. But you know you're going to be late. You're going to be 5 minutes late for work at least. Now, I've had a good look around the audience, and I've made another assumption. I think you're all law-abiding, conscientious drivers. That's what I think. And even though that you know you're going to be late for work, admittedly, you're in the outside lane trying to overtake people, but you're not breaking the speed limit. You're doing 70 miles an hour in the car on your way into work. Then you see an unusual sign for British roads. Roadworks. What a shock. Ahead. Contraflow. 2 lanes are about to go into one. Now remember, you're conscientious, law-abiding individuals, so you know what the sensible thing to do here is. You check your rear-view mirror, you indicate left, you move into the inside lane. Provided everybody does that, you're just going to glide through that contraflow. You might have to slow down a little bit, but there'll be no bottlenecks. So because you're the drivers that you are, that's exactly what you do. You indicate left, you move into the inside lane, you check your rear-view mirror, everyone behind you is doing the same. Fantastic. Little pat on the back for you, pat on the back for them. Life is good. And then you glance at your wing mirror. Not everyone then. No. There's a car. It's pulled out from the back. And it is racing down the outside lane now, trying to steal the march on everybody else. Now, I won't tell you what make or model the car is, but if I tell you it didn't indicate when it pulled out, you might have a rough idea. And this car is now in the outside lane, and it is racing down the outside, trying to get ahead of everybody else. Well, you might notice your heart rate changing slightly, and your breathing changing, because what you're doing at this moment in time is doing a time and motion appreciation study inside your brain. And you work out that by the time you get to the contraflow, you and that car are going to coincide. So it's going to arrive there at the same time as you. Well, your heart rate's definitely changed now, and your breathing's changed. Your fists are clenched on the steering wheel, and your jaw is set because you have made a decision. I'm not letting him in. I'm not letting that car in. I do not give a monkey's what happens. I can't believe they'd be so bloody rude. Everybody else was playing the game. Everybody else moved into the inside lane and was doing the right thing, not them. Oh no, big flash car right in the outside lane, racing down the outside, trying to get ahead of everyone else. Well, that's it. I'm not letting them in. No way, no how. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When they draw level with me and I arrive there at the same time, I'm going to look across at them with the smuggest of expressions I possibly can muster as I leave them in the outside lane. Anyhow, as it turns out, you're right. When you get to the contraflow, you and that car coincide. But it is a fraction in front of you. And it cuts across in front of you, causing you to sharply apply your brakes. Rage is the only word I can use to explain what is going through you at that moment in time as that car cuts in front of you. I can't believe they'd be so rude. Why would they do such a thing? Everyone else was playing the game. Right, I'm chasing after that car. I'm going to chase after that car. I'm going to chase after it, and I'm going to pull up level with it. I'm going to wind my window down because I'm in an old car, and I don't know how I got to the left window with such a short arm. But anyway, don't worry about it. And I'm going to wind down the window, and I'm going to shout obscenities about them, at those people about their behavior. I'm just so angry. That's not enough. That's just not enough. I'm going to chase after the car. I'm going to force it off the road. I'm going to get out of the car. I'm going to pull him out. All of this happening in that short period of time. What if I was to tell you that the anger that you're experiencing at that moment only lasts for a fraction of a second? What if I was to tell you that the only thing that keeps it alive is the story you're telling it? As you start feeding it, I can't believe they'd be so rude. I'd do such a thing, do this. I'm going to chase after him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. All that's happening is you're putting fuel on a fire. You're loading fuel up onto this fire, and it's starting to blaze and blaze and blaze, brighter and brighter and brighter. Very interesting thing about fire. The first thing it consumes is the vessel that it starts in. So the only person that's getting hurt at that moment in time is you, as you flood your body with rage and toxins that you cannot hope to discharge at that moment in time. Then another fantastic thing happens, very interesting, when we go into fight, flight, and freeze response. That was fight, by the way, in case you didn't notice it. When you go into fight, flight, and freeze response, what also happens is you lose access to 2 really important parts of your brain. You lose access to a portion of your memory, and you lose access to the prefrontal cortex, which is where appropriate decision-making takes place. I'm going to take you through a technique in a moment that can bring us out of fight, flight, and freeze response in very short order and restore that stasis and balance so that we can carry out the appropriate actions. Now then, this is the funky bit of the talk. I'm going to take you through a mindfulness practice. Now then, it's really hard to get people to buy into this. Let me tell you something. I've delivered this talk to around 15,000 people in defence, and I guarantee, stone cold guarantee, that if you carry out this practice, you'll receive benefit from it. No doubt whatsoever about it. If you carry out this practice with me now, you will receive benefit. All you have to do is follow my guidance from the voice, and then you will receive benefit. No doubt about it. Everyone happy? You with me? Fantastic. Right, okay. First thing I need you to do is to sit down. Great work, well done. Right. You'll be pleased to know that everything that you can do here now is done from the comfort of your own chairs. You don't have to remove your footwear. Promise, there's not going to be any whale music. There is no incense, nothing like that. All right, so it's all nice and easy. So we sit down on our chair, and we've got good contact with the floor with both feet, please. So good contact, so uncrossing our legs, yeah? Now, contrary to popular belief, mindfulness is about falling awake, not falling asleep. It's about coming into the present moment. It's not about drifting off into some wow man space, okay? So we have to have a posture of dignified attention. So we move slightly away from the back of our chairs if we're able to. We have our shoulders nice and relaxed. You might have to work on that. Most people carry all their tension here, and their shoulders are right up near their ear rolls all day long. Push them down a little bit. Let them relax. Arms and hands can be rested in the lap, interlinked, wherever you want. That's up to you. No problem, as long as they're comfortable. Our heads are up slightly, and when I say for that, I don't mean our foreheads are up. I mean it's like you've got a bit of string attached to the top of your head, and it's pulling your spine nice and straight. And with that posture, I'm then going to ask you to remove your most dominant sense. Did you know that 50% of your attention goes into your vision? 50%. You've got 4 other senses that you barely use, but 50% is in your vision. So it's easier if we close our eyes when we do this practice. So with that posture, don't worry, I'm closing mine as well. With our eyes closed, I now want you to turn your attention to your breathing. So I want you to notice where the air is coming in through the nose or the mouth, to where it's contacting the back of the throat, the rise and the fall of the chest, and the rise and the fall of the abdomen, the belly. All of your attention is now focused on your breathing. Now, you're not trying to breathe. Your body's been breathing without your input for your entire life. This is not Wim Hof box breathing. Become the observer of the natural phenomenon of breathing. If you're breathing slow and shallow, that's fine. If you're breathing long and deep, that's also fine. If you're breathing through your nostrils, is there more air at one nostril than the other, or is it even? If you're breathing through your mouth, can you feel the passage of the air over the lips, the teeth, and the tongue? Then there's that contact at the back of the throat, and then the lungs will start to fill, and the chest will rise, and the belly will start to push out. Now, we have a terrible tendency to hold our bellies in and stick our chests out. Please don't do that. Allow it all to hang out. Let the belly loose so that the bottom part of your lungs can fill at the end of the in-breath. And then there's a space, a gap, a silence. And then the reverse of the process happens as the lungs start to empty and the slightly warmer air exits via the nose or the mouth. And then there's another space, a gap. And then the whole thing happens all over again. All of your attention now on the physical feelings and sensations of breathing. Now, your mind is going to want to get involved here. And maybe something that's happened already today, maybe things that could happen later, stuff going on in the room around you. Don't worry, it's what minds do. They like to keep busy. Your job is to notice. And when you notice your mind trying to direct your attention elsewhere, don't criticize, don't judge, don't get involved in the conversation. Just guide your attention gently back to the physical feelings and sensations, specifically now in the area of the belly, as it rises and falls in conjunction with your breath. All of your attention is now there. And on the next out breath, I want you to send your attention down through your hips, down through your legs, and all the way down to where your feet are in contact with the floor. feeling that contact between your feet through your footwear to the surface of the floor. Now you may be able to feel the contact between your feet, your socks, your footwear, the contact. Maybe you're aware of the sensation of heat or cold. Internally, inside the foot, you might feel a tingling sensation, a little bit like pins and needles. You may feel none of these things, of course, and if nothing, that's fine. But as long as you're aware of the location of your feet in relation to the rest of your body without looking, as long as you can feel your feet, that's enough. Now here again, your mind's going to want to get involved. And if it tries 100 times to take your attention away, when you notice your job, guide it gently back 100 times if necessary to the physical feelings and sensations as we leave our feet behind now. Travel up through the legs, past the knees, and to where your bottom's in contact with the chair. Feeling that contact between your bottom and the surface that you're sat on. Aware of the work that gravity is doing right now, holding you in place on this planet as it hurtles through space, spinning. That downward pressure that's transferred through your body to the two sit bones, one on each cheek, and the contact between them and the surface that you're sat on. Now here again, your mind's going to want to get involved. It's a little bit like a small child or a puppy tugging at your sleeve, trying to get your attention to something it thinks is more exciting. When you notice, no telling it off, smile gently, guide your attention back to the physical feelings and sensations as we leave the bottom behind and move up the spine, across the shoulders, down through the arms, and into the super sensitive hands. One of the most sensitive parts of your body, the hands. And as you attend to them, again you may feel that contact, hand on leg, temperature. You may feel that tingling sensation like pins and needles, or maybe a pulsing in conjunction with your blood flow. Still you may feel nothing, and still that's fine. As long as you're aware of the location of your hands without looking, as long as you can feel them, that's enough. Here again, the mind will tug at your sleeve, and here again, when you notice, smile gently, guide your attention back to the physical feelings and sensations as we leave the hands behind and move to the outer extremities of our body, our skin. So feeling where your skin comes into contact with the outside air and your clothing. That subtle touch of fabric against skin and the temperature change against your exposed skin. Aware of the space that your body is inhabiting. Noticing its edges. Here again, the mind's going to want to get involved, and here again, when you notice, just smile gently. Guide your attention back to the physical feelings and sensations as we leave the skin and travel back into the hands. From the hands to the bottom. From the bottom down through the legs to the feet. From the feet to the abdomen, the belly. The rise and the fall of the chest. The in-breath and the out-breath. And in a moment, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes, and when I do, just bring that feeling of inhabiting the body into the room as we very slowly open our eyes and we end the practice. And open your eyes. Take your time getting used to your surroundings again. How did that feel? I'm hoping it was relaxing. That is what your human body should feel like at rest. stasis and balance. It's called homeostasis. What's normally happening is the mind is telling you something is happening that isn't. It's agitating your body via a sensation, and your body's responding like it's real when it's not. And that then keeps you in that agitated state. What this mindfulness does is brings us back into that stasis and balance. Did everyone notice their minds, though, going through that practice? Trying to take their attention away? Everyone notice it? Were you all, even if only for a fraction of a second, able to gather your mind and focus it on the part of the body I was talking about before it went away again? Did everyone manage to achieve that? Well, then congratulations, you bunch of hippies. You've just meditated. Because that is the principle of meditation. Your mind, your body, same place, same time, same focus. Your mind is trying to take your attention somewhere else. You notice. You bring it back to the body. It tries to go away again. You notice. Back to the body, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. The more and the more you do it, the easier and the easier it becomes. And then you gain something. In between that stimulus and reaction, there's a space. And in that space is something that pretty much everyone in the world is looking for. A little bit of peace. Will my mind just shut up for a couple of minutes, please? And in that space, that's exactly where you find it. It's a little bit like you open a gate and you see an untrampled field. No one's ever walked there before. And you walk across the grass. You turn around and look behind you, and you'll see a very faint trace where you've just walked. If you keep walking backwards and forwards across the same piece of grass, eventually you'll create a pathway. That's exactly what's happening in your brain. You're creating new neural pathways via repetitive activity. Akin to logging onto a computer, finding your favorite search engine, typing in for a website for the very first time. The first time it goes to the website, it takes a little while as it tries to find the pathway. Provided you don't delete your history, and you log on the next day onto the very same website, what you'll find will happen, it will get there quicker because the pathway's already in place. Don't be surprised, the computer's modeled on the human brain. And the more you do it, the more peace, the more calm you can gain. Now, I said you could do that in a car. Don't close your eyes, potentially fatal, ridiculous idea. But what you can do when you're in the car is pay attention to what parts of my body. So where are my feet? Oh, they're on the pedals. Where are my hands? They're on the steering wheel. Where's my bottom? It's on the seat. My feet are on the pedals, my hands, I'm perfectly safe. There's nothing for me to fight. There's nothing for me to run away from, nothing for me to freeze about. Stasis and balance is resumed. Then you gain access to two really important parts of your brain, remember? A portion of the memory and the prefrontal cortex, appropriate decision making. Maybe it's not such a good idea to chase after that car. Maybe in that car, someone is being rushed to hospital who's very ill. Maybe in that car is Mike Tyson. Really bad idea to try and run it off the road and pull him out. So, as you'll see, this tool is very useful and effective. Now, I use that as an extreme example, but you can use it in loads of areas. I'm sure that you've all done exams in your time, where you sit in a room full of people, there's a space between your desk so you can't cheat, and the paper's turned over and your pen's on top of it. You're not allowed to turn it over until the invigilator says so. And then they say, you may turn over your paper. You turn over your paper, you write your name at the top. That's a free mark, provided you spell it right. Then you read the first question. I have absolutely no idea what that question's asking me. I've been studying this subject for about 3 months now, and I have got no one's taught me that. They just made that up. They must have. Then you read the next question. No, now I'm really certain. I must be in the wrong room. This is the wrong paper. My heart's changing. I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I've got a sinking feeling in my stomach. What's actually happening at that moment in time is that you are going into survival mode, into freeze mode, because you're petrified by some writing on a piece of paper. Can I just run that sentence past you again, just in case you didn't pick up how ridiculous it was? You're going into survival mode because you're petrified by some writing on a piece of paper. All you need to do at that moment in time, close your eyes, pay attention to your breathing, send your attention down to your feet, your bottom, your hands, your skin, back in the opposite direction, regain stasis and balance. Portion of your memory clicks back in. Prefrontal cortex, click back in. You'll have the answer to your question. Because when you go into that freeze mode, everything in your body goes tight, and it's happening in the brain too. Now imagine an athlete standing at the start line and tensing every muscle at once and then trying to run fast. Not a hope in hell. It's exactly what's happening up here. If you allow it to flow the way that it should do, you'll gain the answer. Now that's not a shortcut to revising, I'm afraid. You still have to put the information in there in the first place, but it's a great technique for gaining access to the thoughts to take you out of that freeze mode. And it's also good for fear. Most of the fears that we're experiencing every day is our mind telling us about something that isn't actually happening. Forecasting into the future, fear of going to the dentist, fear of going to the doctors, fear of crowds, fear of going outside, fear of... The majority of these things, these fears that we're experiencing, is our mind telling us that something is happening right now when it isn't, and our body's responding like it is happening. And then it creates a reaction and it stops us doing something. Again, this fantastic tool. Send your attention into the body. Remember, the body doesn't lie. The body tells you the truth about everything. Let's take the dentist. Sat in the dentist, sat on the chair. You can hear in the other room, like screaming. Heart rate's changing, breathing's changing, and you're petrified now as you're sat in there. Nothing's actually happening to you. Ask your body, what's happening right now? I'm sat in the waiting room. I'm sat on a chair. I've just read all those wonderful oral health posters around the wall. I've been scanning at my phone. I'm perfectly safe. I'm in no danger whatsoever. Then the sensation disappears because there's nothing to ground it on because the body knows it's safe, and then the thought is exposed as a lie as it vanishes. And then another one comes in, does the same, you go back into the body, ask the body tells the truth, sensation disappears, thought disappears, and you just keep doing it. A really simple technique to help you with regular fears, I would say. So there you go, that's not bad, is it? You get a freebie as well. That's coming today. That's amazing. Right. Here it is. This is it. Right. Now, you thought you were coming here for the on-track mental health event at the Tank Museum today. I'm so sorry to shatter your illusions. The universe has played a massive trick on you. Everything in your life leading up to this moment, apart from him, who's fast asleep, by the way, this guy here, yeah, we're back in the room. It's like Paul McKenna, innit? Huh? You like that? Anyway, his head was right back there. I nearly fell off. Anyway, everything in your life up until this moment has been leading to this next sentence. The sentence that could change your life forever. This moment that could change everything for you. Everything has led to this moment. You're not in this room by coincidence. This is it. If you're going to fall asleep at any stage during my talk, mate, this is not the moment, right? This is the bit you tune in for. Got it? Sorted. Right. So focus your attention on this because this is so important, right? Now I have to carry this sentence around me wherever I go. It's so powerful, but it's really heavy too. So I have to psych myself up a bit to deliver it. So please give me a moment. Remember, don't switch off. Here we go. Right. Here it comes. You ready? Okay. You only live now. You look pretty underwhelmed by that sentence. You only live now. Right this second is the only second you can possibly be alive. Nothing happens outside of this present moment. It is physically impossible. The future is a figment of your imagination. You create it. And the past is just your perception of events that have been. Now, that's not to say you weren't there. You were. But when you were, it was in the present moment. When you look back on it, it's just your perception of events that have been. Don't be surprised if it's different from someone else's. You're only ever alive in this one evolving moment. It moves with you throughout your life, but it's only ever now. It's impossible for it to be anything else. Now that takes a bit of mind bending, so I'm going to help you. Let's start with the past. Fantastic experiment carried out at a university in London. They brought in a load of postgraduate students to do some psychometric testing. That's like hand-eye coordination stuff. At lunchtime, the tutor came in and said, because you've been such a fantastic course, we're all going to go to the pub for lunch to celebrate. Woohoo, they're over the moon. They're off to the pub for lunch to celebrate. This is where the real experiment's going to happen. They all go to the pub, and they're all sat down in a semicircle, a horseshoe shape with a perfect view of the bar. They've ordered their food, they're having a natter, whilst they're waiting for their food to turn up, having a little drink. Into the bar walk two actors, playing the role of not-so-gentle gentlemen, and they're very good actors. They walk into the bar, they have an altercation with one another, a big argument which turns into a fight. I'm talking a full-blown fight. 8 minutes of frantic physical activity was going on here. There were fists, head, knees, teeth, boots, everything. It was all launched at once. Everyone in this group's got a perfect view of the fight in front of them. But inside their group is one stooge that's been planted. In the middle of the fight, they shout out, knife. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have had the microphone. Knife, right? That's what they shout out in the middle of the fight. 8 minutes of frantic activity is over. The not-so-gentle gentlemen leave the pub. The police immediately burst on the scene and segregate everybody and carry out eyewitness interviews. Not one person told the same story as the person next to them about what they just witnessed in the fight. There were subtle differences in everybody's recall about what they'd seen. Some people said there was a knife present when there was no knife. You're all watching the same brief being delivered by the same person, but you're seeing something subtly different to the person next to you. Because unless you're from the same immediate family, you have a different biological upbringing. Unless you come from the same house, same street, same town, same village, same school, you have a different environmental upbringing. And if even those two things match with someone else in the room, you've all experienced different things to each other. So you have a different experiential upbringing, and that changes the way you view your world. And I'm narrowing on purpose. You view your world based on your biology, your environment, and your experiences. Now let's go back to the fight in the pub with our newfound knowledge and find out who was telling the truth. Everybody. They were all telling the truth. They were telling their truth. Fantastic statement. There is no such thing as truth. There is only perception. Your perception. And when you look back into the past, it's just your perception of events that have been, and don't be surprised if it's different from someone else's. Now let's go to the future. Wake up in the morning, toothpaste on the toothbrush, looking in the mirror, brushing the teeth. Manual? Electric. That's right, it's just my bit of visual humor I do to keep myself occupied whilst I'm up on the stage. Anyhow, whilst you're brushing your teeth in the morning and looking in the mirror, something's going on up here. What are you doing? Anyone? Thinking of the day ahead, we're planning our day, which turns into scenarios, which turns into a mini-movie. Inside your head, you're in the starring role of this movie, and you know that later on you're going to bump into someone and you're not particularly happy about it, and it might get a little bit leery, and you might get a bit agitated, and your heart rate changes, and your breathing changes. There's a bit of chest poking going on in this film. And then you know later on in the day, you're going to bump into someone you haven't seen for years, and you love them dearly, and you can't wait to meet them, and you can see yourself in slow motion, running across the beach towards them, arms outstretched, arms around them, and you get this wonderful feeling of love coming up through your body. And then there's another scenario and another one. I mean, I'm amazed anyone ever gets out of the bathroom in the morning with all this stuff going on. But let's say you had the presence of mind to wipe away the slaver, that's a technical term, and write down everything you thought was going to happen that day, the way you thought it was going to happen, including the outcomes, and then came back in the evening and reviewed your list. How many of those things would be accurate? It would be a very small percentage, if any at all, because the future's a figment of your imagination. You create it. So, if the future's a figment of your imagination that you create, and the past is just your perception of events that have been, and you only live right now, right this second, only second you can possibly be alive, who's got any problems? Nobody. That's right. You create them for yourselves. Now, that's not to say we don't meet challenging circumstances in our lives. We do. But when we meet them in the present moment. And when we meet them in the present moment, we go round them, through them, under them, over them, whatever it takes to overcome them. Our issue arises when we create problems. We forecast them into our future, and we base them on our only reference point, the past. So we spend nearly all of our lives reaching into our past and throwing it in front of us to create what our future's going to look like, constantly doing the past and reliving it over and over and over, and never spending any time in the only moment we're alive. We miss it. It's ridiculous. Never actually here. What is wrong with now? It's the only moment you're actually ever alive. Now, my ex-wife used to wake up in the morning, and she'd open the curtains, and if it was raining outside, she'd turn to me and she'd say, "Oh, it's a miserable day out there." And I would wait for the response, which was normally a slap, when I would reply by saying, "The weather's just the weather, my dear. It's you just bloody miserable." Now, that may be why she's my ex-wife, but what I'm trying to point out to you here is the weather is just the weather. Rain just falls from the sky. It has no mood. It has no intention. It isn't unhappy. It's not miserable. It's just rain. If it didn't rain, nothing would grow. The sun, contrary to popular belief, is not beautiful, wonderful, or glorious. Try going to Australia during bushfire season and tell me if the sun is beautiful, glorious, or wonderful. We create the labels and the judgments, and with those labels and judgments, we create the world that we walk around with. Now, what I'm not suggesting here is positive American psychology. I'm not expecting you to wake up in the morning after brushing your teeth, look in the mirror, give yourself a smile, ching, God, I'm gorgeous, and this is going to be an amazing day. No, because that's also doomed to failure. What I'm suggesting you do is to remove the labels and the judgments, to remove the preconceived ideas, to spend some time in the present moment and see what's actually there. And you will be astonished by what you see. This life's a bloody miracle. You can't even write the script. You wake up one day, you're not even present at your birth. Who remembers? You wake up one day, you're not even present at your birth, and you're suddenly in this place, in this thing surrounded by stuff. And in amongst this stuff is an environment that, provided we don't screw it up, it'll continue doing what it does. The sun shines, it rains, things grow, things eat the things that grow. The majority of us eat the things that grow. And all of that happens without our input in this phenomenal instrument of a body that it breathes. The blood pumps, the heart beats. If you cut yourself, it heals. It's a miracle. We miss it because we're too busy focusing on an illusory future. Something that we've created ourselves based on a past, which is just our perception of events that have been. We miss everything. If you're a person that goes to meetings and you walk through an outside space, what most people do on the way through the outside space is they don't notice the outside, because in their head they're in the meetings. And they walk in, I'm going to sit next to, I know what the subject is, I know what I'm going to say, I know what they're likely to say, I know I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They get in the meeting, they sit down, meeting starts, gone. What am I going to have for tea tonight? What am I having at the weekend? What am I going to do this? You might come back in for your speaking part to say it, and then you're back out again, constantly trying to escape the only moment you're given. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Now, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I reckon there's a judgment day. And I reckon at the end of all this, you get an opportunity to look in a massive mirror. And in that mirror, you get an opportunity to see how you got on, to judge yourself. And if you spent all of your time forecasting into a future that was a figment of your imagination, based on the past, which was just your perception of events that have been, and never actually turning up for the only moment you were alive, I think you might have wasted your life. And that's why that ridiculous sentence is so important. You only live now. So turn up. Try being here. Use the 5 amazing senses that you have in this body, and use the 6th sense, which is your mind, but don't let it use you. And see what's really here. And then you'll really start to experience life. And it's bloody marvelous. And that brings me to the end of my talk. Have they got time for questions?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pat. How are they as an audience? Any better than Glastonbury? Or? So it's brilliant. So what have we learned? What have we learned from listening to Pat? Well, I'm not going out in Bovington at night if there's bears around, that's for sure. I'm staying firmly indoors. I think a good 95% of you all joined in with Pat and practiced that mindfulness session. And I hope, like I did first time I heard Pat, which was here, the previous On Track, from having done that, take something away. I know it's certainly impacted on me. And the other thing, and Pat said it today, and he said it then, and that one simple sentence, you only live now, is so true. If you take nothing else away from you from this, please take that away. So we've got time, I think. Yeah, a couple of questions if there are any for Pat. Or is everyone so chilled and at one with themselves now that they're...
So from me, it's actually not a question at all. I'm just very glad to be here again and that you're talking again. I saw you on the first On Track, which was in this teeny tiny room next door. And I know we had a great talk after and a good lunch. So yeah, and just thank you for talking again. I completely forgot your really amazing cat impression. And thanks, Kevin Moore, for doing this event again, because it has involved so, so much, and I'm very grateful to you. So thank you.
Thank you. It's very kind. Oh, we got one at the front.
Yeah, Mike's coming. You have to allow Pip to get from the back of the room to the front of the room.
I know somebody who's hypochondriac. What is going on with them? They have the experience of nothing bad having happened to them in the past, and yet they fear the future. What's happening with them, please?
So that's quite an interesting question. You say that nothing's happened to them in the past. Now, I clearly don't know that individual person, but there's lots of inputs that people are receiving from society around them, and also, if you believe that kind of thing, from previous lives. Because look, if I ask you the question, do any of you remember what your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather looks like? Who would remember? None of you? Well, you should do, because you've got his nose on your face. Because you have cellular memory and imprinted through your body from countless generations in your life, and it's still in there, and your behaviors are guided by it, and so are your instincts and some of the things that you do. And we've also got this so informed multimedia life that we live now that it almost feels like these things are real. And there's 4 stages of the mind. I'm going to just really quickly. Consciousness, perception, sensation, reaction. Consciousness, you're alive, can't do nothing about it, that's you. Perception. 6 sense doors. 5 of them are your physical, 6th is your mind. That's thought, right? What they do is they come into contact with the world, they create something, or something contacts them, then it creates a physical sensation in the body. Let's say this person has a thought about something really negative or scary or an illness that they've seen somewhere or they've heard about. It creates a physical sensation in the body. That sensation in the body feels real now because it's based on the thought, and then your mind goes into the next stage, which is reaction. Right, where have I come across something like that before? That story, oh my God, it must be this. Creates another thought, creates another sensation, creates another reaction, and then it gets trapped in a cycle. What we do in mindfulness is we intervene between the perception, between the sensation and the reaction, between the stimulus and the reaction. And if you can find that space and isolate the sensation in the body from the thought, what you'll find is the sensation will disappear. And when the sensation disappears because it's not real, the thought will then disappear. Another one's going to come and replace it, 60,000 a day, oh my God. But the more you learn, the more that slows down, the easier it is, the better your life becomes. Is that a good enough answer? Thank you. No worries.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Pat. So hopefully we all go home, and the next time our partner says to us, what are you thinking about? And you say, nothing, it might just be true.
Thank
you very much,
Thanks,
Pat.
Jeff. Much appreciated. Thanks for having me back. Cheers. Thank you.